3 races and 1 sprint race to believe in the Constructors' Championship. Scuderia, Ferrari and Red Bull are trying to do their best in this final stretch of the 2024 Formula One season, where McLaren is leading the Constructors' standings with 593 points. The Italian team is trailing by only 36 points to the Woking squad, which might not be enough to maintain the lead, especially if the British team continues to show inconsistent performance, where the word optimize is absent. For the Milton Keynes team, the gap is greater, 49 points ahead of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. To win a Formula One championship that rewards those who build the cars, both drivers are essential. This was clear. Speaking of the aforementioned contenders, we can say that Ferrari can boast a well-matched pair often capable of equaling each other to serve the purpose. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz have each secured 2 and 3 victories, and aside from a few minor disagreements that were immediately resolved after getting out of the cars, they worked hard in 2024 when the car allowed it, managing to optimize performance during those weekends when it was possible to do well. To say the same for Red Bull is impossible. The comparison is indeed harsh from this perspective, as Sergio Perez's practically total absence over the course of the season is condemning the Austrian team in its title defense. This is the reality. Within this scenario, one fact must be highlighted. McLaren has not exactly been doing everything to claim the Formula One title that has been missing since 1998. Countless errors, repeated, despite the current racing campaign, bearing in mind the potential of the MCL 38 single-seater, the British team could have won both championships without difficulty. McLaren Chief Executive Officer Zak Brown knows it, as does team principal Andrea Stella. Both hint at regret over the driver's title, now claimed by Max Verstappen. The Dutchman will reaffirm himself as Formula One world champion, winning his 4th consecutive title, a streak that could have been interrupted by Lando Norris if the Briton had been able to harness and channel his talent. The team didn't help him, we agree, but he too wasted too many opportunities. In competitive contexts where finishing first, and especially ahead of Max Verstappen, was not that difficult. Just think of the recent Brazilian Grand Prix at the Interlagos circuit. Ferrari and Red Bull are therefore not contenders. Regarding Ferrari, there is some regret for a few points lost in Sao Paulo by Carlos Sainz. A 5th place in Saturday's mini-race and a double zero on Sunday. 2 crashes into the barriers between qualifying and the race left the Spanish driver's points tally empty in the usual Sunday race. The result from the 100-kilometer sprint meant that Carlos Sainz brought home 4 points over the entire weekend at Interlagos. As for Charles Leclerc, who drove the same car with the same issues, the points total rises to 16. 6 points earned in the sprint race and 10 at the end of the Brazilian Grand Prix. In this case, it is clear that the support from the Spaniard has not been up to par. But it is also true that the SF24 single-seater was by no means easy to drive in the wet track conditions at Interlagos. A negative judgment on Carlos Sainz's Ferrari performance is possible, although at the same time we cannot assume it will happen again. This means that the Spaniard should be back on form for the last 3 races of the 2024 Formula One season, and the team, as Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur himself has stated, is not at all concerned about his performance in the upcoming championship rounds. On the contrary, they are counting heavily on the support of the future Williams driver. Carlos Sainz has all it takes to help Ferrari nurture its longed-for ambition, regardless of what happens on the track. Meanwhile, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner is not sleeping soundly. In the past, he has defended Sergio Perez on multiple occasions, especially when the Red Bull cars were performing like clockwork. Now, however, he can no longer do so. It would be ridiculous and quite misplaced to present a positive view of the situation. This time, the English team principal was quite firm, describing Formula One as a business where results are fundamental. And indeed, who can blame him? Christian Horner maintains that Sergio Perez is not at all pleased with his season, revealing that the Mexican admitted as much behind closed doors. And understandably so, we might add. Denying the obvious was not an option, and the numerous excuses Sergio Perez provided throughout the season to justify embarrassing performances were no longer sustainable. Christian Horner is not giving up on the Constructors' Championship and believes the goal is not entirely lost. In principle, the math still leaves a door open for Red Bull, but the one undermining the team's chances is, in fact, the Mexican driver. It is hard to imagine the narrative changing in this final part of the 2024 Formula One season. For this reason, the odds do not favor Red Bull as a serious challenger. It is difficult to envision an end to such a negative streak. Ferrari, on the other hand, has reason to believe. Even for the prancing horse, it's quite challenging. The points are not many, it's true. But to support this ambition, errors must be minimized, preferably reduced to zero, if possible. Beyond that, they must consistently finish ahead of McLaren and perhaps hope the British team keeps making mistakes. At the same time, the SF24 single-seater will not undergo drastic changes. The Maranello team has decided to stop updates and focus on the car. It's about enhancing performance through fine-tuning and fully exploiting the Italian car to find the winning aeromechanical compromise. This move proved effective in the United States Grand Prix at the Austin circuit, as well as in Mexico City, but failed miserably in the Brazilian Grand Prix. Red Bull will adopt this approach as well, but the rivalry between these two teams leans in favor of the red team when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. The reason is clear. Sergio Perez is not up to the task, while Carlos Sainz definitely is. For now, the focus shifts to Las Vegas, where the Maranello team needs a double podium finish to reduce the gap to McLaren and continue the fight in the final two races. Charles Leclerc is cautiously optimistic about Ferrari's prospects for the Las Vegas Grand Prix, but warns that the Scuderia's progress in tire management might be a double-edged sword in next week's event. After struggling in 2023 with chronic tire degradation, the Italian outfit has made significant strides this season to strengthen the durability of its tires, and therefore its race pace and consistency. While Ferrari enjoyed a productive weekend at the 6.2-kilometer Las Vegas Strip circuit in Nevada 1 year ago, with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz locking out the front row in qualifying, the low temperatures enforced that weekend greatly mitigated the Scuderia's degradation issues. The Monegasque driver fears this might not be the case this time, given Ferrari's newfound ability to quickly bring its tires up to the optimal working temperatures. He told the media in Brazil that they were very strong last year and expressed hope that they could be just as strong this time. However, Charles Leclerc added that it might be somewhat trickier to get the tires to the right temperatures, acknowledging the challenge of effectively warming them under the cooler conditions expected in the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Scuderia Ferrari, therefore, has little room for error if it wants to keep itself in the frame for the title against McLaren and a resurgent Red Bull. And Carlos Sainz shares the determination of his Maranello teammate, Charles Leclerc, to give it their all in the final stretch, asserting that they will remain in contention until the very end in Abu Dhabi. The Spaniard emphasized the importance of the upcoming 3 weekends for the entire team and stated that they now need to refocus, regroup, and determine the best approach for these last 3 races of the 2024 Formula One Championship.